James paused at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister with a hand that trembled ever so slightly. The house was silent, save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the ticking of the ancient grandfather clock in the hallway. His wife, Claire, had gone to bed early, leaving him alone to check on their son, Ethan. The boy's bedroom door was ajar, a sliver of dim light spilling into the hallway. Taking a deep breath, James pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a nightlight shaped like a crescent moon, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. James's eyes were immediately drawn to the bed where Ethan lay, his small form barely visible beneath a mound of blankets. "Ethan," James called softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The boy didn't stir. James moved closer, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. He could hear the faint, rhythmic sound of Ethan's breathing. It should have been comforting, but instead, it sent a chill down his spine. There was something off, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. As he approached the bed, James noticed an odd smell, a sickly sweet odor, like rotting fruit. He wrinkled his nose and reached out to pull the blankets back, revealing Ethan's face. The boy's eyes were closed, his expression serene. But there was an unnatural stillness about him, a rigidity that made James's stomach churn. "Ethan, are you okay?" James asked, his voice louder now, tinged with desperation. Ethan's eyes snapped open, and James recoiled. The boy's eyes were a deep, unsettling black, devoid of any whites. They stared up at him, unblinking, and James felt a wave of nausea wash over him. James's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to run, to wake Claire and tell her something was terribly wrong, but he couldn't move. He was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. "Ethan, what's wrong?" James managed to croak out, his throat dry. Ethan's lips curled into a sinister smile. "He's here, Daddy. He says it's time." "Daddy," Ethan whispered, his voice strange and distorted, as if it were coming from somewhere far away. James felt a cold hand grip his heart. Who is here?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Ethan's smile widened, and he pointed to the corner of the room where the shadows were darkest. James followed his gaze, squinting to see through the gloom. At first, he saw nothing, but then the shadows seemed to shift, coalescing into a darker, more tangible form. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and gaunt, with eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. James's breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight of the entity. It had the shape of a man, but its features were wrong, elongated limbs, fingers that ended in sharp, claw-like nails, and a mouth that stretched into a grotesque grin. "Who are you?" James whispered, his voice barely audible. The figure tilted its head, regarding him with those soulless eyes. "I am the whisper in the dark," it replied, its voice a low, sibilant hiss. "I have come for what is mine." James's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. "Ethan is my son," he said, his voice growing stronger. "You can't have him." The creature laughed, a sound that sent shivers down James's spine. "He was never yours to keep," it said. "He has always been mine." Ethan's eyes remained fixed on his father, that eerie smile never faltering. "Daddy, he promised to take me somewhere special," he said, his voice filled with an unnatural cheerfulness. James's heart broke as he looked at his son, knowing he was losing him to something he couldn't fight. "Ethan, please," he begged, tears streaming down his face. "Don't go with him." The creature extended a hand towards Ethan, and the boy reached out, his small fingers slipping into the entity's grasp. James lunged forward, but it was too late. The room was suddenly plunged into darkness, and when the light returned, both Ethan and the entity were gone. James fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. The room was silent once more, but the sense of dread lingered, a palpable presence that would haunt him for the rest of his days. He knew he would never see his son again, and the thought filled him with a despair deeper than he had ever known. In the quiet of the night, the whisper in the dark had claimed its prize, leaving behind a broken man and a house filled with shadows.